Hello viewers, in this video I will explain the purpose and key provisions of the non-resident speculation tax, also called NRST, that is imposed in Ontario since 2017. So watch carefully. First I explain why NRST was introduced in Ontario. The primary purpose of imposing NRST in Ontario is to deter foreign buyers from buying residential property so that prices of these properties remain stable. Legislation to enable the NRST was passed into law on June 1, 2017. The rules are worded broadly to catch foreign buyers whether they purchase directly, through corporations, or by using a Canadian citizen or permanent resident to hold title. You need to remember that the non-resident speculation tax, also referred to as the foreign buyers tax, is a tax that certain foreign purchasers must pay at closing when buying a house anywhere in the province of Ontario or in certain British Columbia regions. Currently, the NRST is 25% in Ontario and 20% in British Columbia. An example will highlight the impact of NRST on a foreign buyer. Since the NRST in Ontario is 25%, therefore if a foreign buyer purchases a $1 million home in Ontario, they'll have to pay an additional $250,000 fee at closing. This brings the total cost of their purchase up to $1.25 million before closing costs. Prior to March 30, 2022, the NRST was a 15% tax on the purchase of an interest in residential property in the Greater Golden Horseshoe region (GGH) of Ontario by individuals who are foreign nationals or by foreign corporations or taxable trustees. From March 30, 2022 to October 24, 2022 inclusive, the NRST rate was 20% applied on the purchase or acquisition of an interest in a residential property located anywhere in Ontario by individuals who are foreign nationals or by foreign corporations or taxable trustees. However, effective October 25, 2022, the non-resident speculation tax or NRST rate was increased to 25%. The NRST applies on the purchase or acquisition of interest in residential property located anywhere in Ontario by individuals who are foreign nationals, that is, individuals who are not Canadian citizens or permanent residents of Canada, or by foreign corporations or taxable trustees. You also need to remember that the NRST applies in addition to the General Land Transfer Tax, also called LTT, in Ontario. The NRST applies to foreign entities or taxable trustees who purchase or acquire a residential property in the Ontario. A foreign entity is either a foreign national or a foreign corporation. A foreign national, as defined in the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act Canada, is an individual who is not a Canadian citizen or permanent resident of Canada. Similarly, a foreign corporation is a corporation that is one of the following. 1. A corporation that is not incorporated in Canada. 2. A corporation the shares of which are not listed on a stock exchange in Canada, that is incorporated in Canada and is controlled directly or indirectly in any manner whatever by a foreign national. A taxable trustee means a trustee of 1. A trust with at least one trustee that is a foreign entity, or number 2, a trustee with no foreign entity trustees if a beneficiary of the trust is a foreign entity. The NRST applies to the transfer of designated land, which is land that contains at least one and not more than 6 single-family residences. Examples of land containing one single-family residence include a detached house, a semi-detached house, a townhouse, or a condominium unit. Examples of land containing more than one single-family residence that are subject to the tax include duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, fiveplexes, and sixplexes. For the purposes of the NRST, single-family residences include cottages, cabins, and other similar structures that are designed for occupation as the residence of a family, whether or not that family has a residence elsewhere and whether or not the structure is habitable for only part of the year. Further, the NRST does not apply to other types of land such as land containing multi-residential rental apartment buildings with more than 6 units, agricultural land, commercial land, or industrial land. The NRST applies on the value of the consideration for the residential property. If the land transferred includes residential property and land used for non-residential purposes, for example, commercial purposes, the NRST applies on the portion of the value of the consideration attributable to the residential property. For example, if the value of the consideration of the transaction is $3 million and contains one single family residence with a value of the consideration of $1.4 million and land used for commercial purposes with a value of the consideration of $1.6 million, the NRST would apply to only the $1.4 million portion. As an example, W, X, Y, and Z buy a home as tenants in common, each as to a 25% interest with a value of the consideration of $1.5 million. W, X, and Y are Canadian citizens, but Z is a foreign national. The NRST is applied to the full value of the consideration, resulting in NRST payable of $375,000. They do not pay NRST on just 25% of the value of the consideration owned by the non-resident. The NRST is not prorated to the interest acquired by the foreign national. Each transferee is jointly and severally liable for any NRST payable. If a foreign entity or taxable trustee does not pay the NRST, the other transferees will be required to pay the tax. This applies even if the other transferees are Canadian citizens, permanent residents of Canada, or non-foreign corporations. An exemption from NRST may be available for registered transfers if the transferee is a nominee, a protected person, or a spouse of a Canadian citizen, a permanent resident of Canada, a nominee, or a protected person. The NRST is payable at the time of registration through TerraView, Ontario's electronic land registration system. TerraView is equipped to collect the 25% NRST as well as the 20% NRST and the 15% NRST under the transitional provisions. If you have liked this video, please do subscribe to my channel and also share and like this video. If you need professional advice on this subject, you may contact me at the number and email shown on the screen. Thank you for watching.